Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, given that I am currently in my first week off in literally years, I thought this might be a good time to count down the 10 worst Pokemon VMAXs. And it is my first week off in literally years, so if you want to be nice and, click a few extra videos, watch a few extra things, because I have gone to one video a day for a while, well, that would be pretty gosh darn nice of you. So, with all of that borne in mind, I do just want to point out before we get going, like Aegislash and Cinderace made the shortlist here. And they're not bad cards. Now, they were the ones that got kind of knocked off the bottom because they didn't quite make it. But the thing is, VMAXs generally are actually kind of good cards. Like Aegislash made the shortlist, so to speak, but actually Aegislash for free energy does 160 plus 30 more for each prize card you've taken. So if you've taken 5 prize cards, you're hitting 310. My issue with this is it's underwhelming at the start of the game. We've got better metal Pokemon VMAXs, and even when you get to the very end of the game and you got one prize remaining, you still don't actually get a one-hit KO on most VMAXs, or you will get a few. Similarly, Cinderace VMAX, I don't think Cinderace VMAX is a bad card. But again, I think there are other Fire VMAXs which I like a lot better. And, the best thing about it is 2 energy, 30 damage. If you were damaged last turn, you do that much damage back. And I love that you can heal and still do the extra, because it's how much was done, not how much damage is on you. But the fact of the matter is, it's easily played around. And again, a lot of these VMAXs, I end up thinking they're not that great, because actually they've been out for a while and they've just seen almost no play. And, I've tested them and found out they're not particularly good. So, starting off with a list, obviously 10 is on the list but the least bad, and number 1 is the worst VMAX we've seen. So, in at number 10, with apologies to one of my most loyal Patreons, patreon.com/PTCGradio, Meowf VMAX. Now, this was one of the very, very first VMAXs. It was a promo. It's a cool card, but it's one of those that's been out for so long, and the fact that I've never really seen it doing well in any tournaments might tell you what you need to know. Now, for 4 energy, you do 200 damage and draw 3 cards, and my problem with Meowf VMAX, there's a few. It's not that easy to get the energy on, even though it's colourless. It's 4 energy, which is quite a lot. And then 200 damage isn't actually enough to KO VMAXs. We really need to do 220 so we can get VMAXs. I love that you draw 3 cards when you attack, but you've got you've got the joint weakest HP of any VMAX. You've got a bad weakness. You're not KOing Pokemon V, and 4 energy is a lot. Love drawing the 3 cards, but for me, Meowf was always going to be on the list. Incidentally, bottom of the list, because I still think doing good damage for colourless energy while drawing cards is good, but unfortunately, I just don't think it's quite good enough, and that's why it ends up being on the list. In at number 9, we've got Dreadnor VMAX. Now, I know a bunch of people did play around with Dreadnor VMAX when it first came around. When it initially launched, I know a bunch of people started playing with Dreadnor. So with that borne in mind, why don't I like Dreadnor VMAX really at all? And the answer is, there's nothing really special about it. Like 3 energy, 240 if you flip a heads. And sure, we've got Glimwood Tangle to give you 2 chances to flip heads rather than 1. But you're only KOing Pokemon Vs if you flip heads. Now, we do have Frostmoth to accelerate energy too, which is lovely. But, if I'm doing 160, which is what you do if you flip tails, well, for the same energy, I could have an Inteleon VMAX that does 160 and a guaranteed 60 to the bench, rather than a chance of another 80 to the active. And I don't know why you would ever play Dreadnor when you've got stuff like Inteleon running around. The coin flip for me is what ends up putting Dreadnor VMAX onto the list. In at number 8, we've got Metagross. And Metagross makes me sad. When I started making this list, I started writing down all the VMAXs that could make the list, assuming that a bunch of them would end up not making it. And Metagross was the first one on the list because it's from Chilling Reign, the most recent set. We are only looking at VMAXs which are released in English, so any VMAXs that were promos in Japan that aren't out yet or are going to be in Evolving Skies, they're not on the list, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe next time, but they're not on this particular list. And I assumed that Metagross would get knocked off the list and wouldn't make it, but it didn't happen. You see, on the one hand, single energy, search for any 2 cards, that's awesome, but this is an evolved Pokemon, not a basic. So I've got to evolve and then use my attack for the turn on at least turn 2 while leaving a free prize Pokemon in the active just to search 2 cards. And if my opponent plays a Marnie, then I don't even get the benefit of the 2 cards, and I've evolved and used an attack, and I'm sitting in the active of a free prize giving up Pokemon ready to take a hit, and I've not gained any benefit from it. As for the 2 energy, I mean, look, 2 energy 250 is pretty good. But it's actually 2 energy 100, and then if it stays in the active, it'll be 250 next turn. But all your opponent needs to do is play something like an escape rope, knock you back to the bench, and when you become active, oh no, you're a different active Pokemon, so now it's 2 energy 100. And 2 energy 100 is not good enough. Incidentally, this bottom part of the list here, you could flick around the order quite a lot and I wouldn't be terribly upset. These bottom 3 you could definitely flip around. Now, another Pokemon I did not really want to put on this list, in at number 7, we've got Flapple VMAX. And I like Flapple VMAX. There's a lot to like about Flapple VMAX. Free energy, 250 damage, bearing in mind Rillaboom is a thing. And Rillaboom will accelerate 2 energy, meaning you can attach for your turn, and oh look, now I've got the free energy on, and I am good to go. There is a lot to like about this. And 250 damage means you get a 1-hit KO on basically any Pokemon VMAX. But then you do 2 less for each damage counter on this Pokemon, which means your opponent doesn't even really need to knock out Flapple, they just need to damage it a little bit, and as soon as they do enough damage, Flapple becomes terrible. And sure, you can mess around with cards like Cheryl that will heal you completely, you lose all the energy you need to get it back, but you know, Rillaboom will do it. There might be a good deck with Flapple, but the fact that you can basically do 150 damage and Flapple becomes a garbage card really puts me off. Now, in at number 6, a Pokemon that actually did see a lot of play when Sword and Shield first came out over in Japan, and one that has been printed in 2 different ways, in 2 different sets, 2 different artworks, etc. Pico VMAX. And here's the thing. I kind of like Pico VMAX, and it saw a bunch of play when it first came out. And you can, you know, when you look at it, you can understand why it saw a bunch of play when it first came out. It could be a great card. Now, what you've essentially got here is free energy 180 plus 20 to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Okay, that's good. But you got 300 HP, which is among the lowest HP we've seen. You are weak to something like Galarian Zapdos, which is a great counter. And don't get me wrong, Galarian Zapdos is a great counter to Eternatus, and Eternatus would not make this list. In fact, if I'm making a list of the top 10 VMAXs, the 10 best, Eternatus is definitely making it onto the list. If anyone's interested, I believe there are just over 50 VMAXs that have been revealed. It's a bit awkward, there's 54, but there's a couple like Pico that have been printed twice separately, so there's just over 50. And we are struggling a bit to find the worst ones. But again, you start with ones that don't see any play and you go from there. Pico used to be pretty good, but between the low HP, the bad weakness, and frankly, the fact that we got stuff like Tapu Koko VMAX, I am not entirely sure why I'm playing this. And the fact of the matter is I'm not playing this. I just think there was a time where Pico was a cool card and it saw a bunch of play. And that time, unfortunately, is very much in the rearview mirror. Nowadays, I can imagine people playing Lightning-type VMAXs, but I think that Tapu Koko is just generally better. Sorry. Coming in at number 5, the last one that makes me feel really sad, it's Stonjourner VMAX. And when I'm making this list, I come to Stonjourner and I'm like, alright, let's see where it fits in the short list. And it's a very unscientific. I look at the list of 10 and I'm like, right, well, is this worse than Meowf? Probably. Worse than Dreadnor? Probably. And it ends up coming in at number 5. And I love Stonjourner VMAX. I tried to make decks around it when it was first released. It was for a little bit, for a very short time, a little bit of an archetype healing up with Indeedee V. Those times are very, very much in the rearview mirror. And my problem with this is that there's nothing really special about it. 1 energy, you attach her fighting from your hand to one of your Pokemon and heal 120, and that's okay. But Cheryl is way better at healing, and at the end of the day, you're using your attack to heal and attach energy, and then you're leaving a free prize Pokemon in the active to take a hit. And honestly, if your opponent does 120 damage or more, you're not really getting any benefit from the healings. You've taken more than you healed. Free energy 200, again, we go back to Meowf and we go, well, hang on a second. Free energy 200 ain't good enough. You're not one-hit KOing VMAXs unless they're weak. And a bunch of them are, but not enough of them are to make me really like this. So, you're not doing enough damage, the free fighting energy is super awkward to pay, the first attack becomes a liability, and then it ends up being number 5 on this list. Sorry. But I do think Butterfree is where we start going, oh, you know what, he's got a point, don't really like that one. You see, Butterfree VMAX is one of those where I don't really like it, and I never tried to make a deck built around it, and I have always considered it to be a pretty bad card since the moment it was first released. Now, Butterfree's got 300 HP, which again is joint lowest we've seen, and for free energy you do 150 plus Confusion plus Poison. And again, we've got Rillaboom to accelerate energy, and at first glance this looks kinda good. And I can look at this and go, well, hang on a second, 2 special conditions, decent damage, hang on. And then I look at it again and I'm like, well, Confusion you're going to switch out of. And if they switch, then it's just free energy 160 on a 300 HP free prize Pokemon. I don't like that at all. I don't think you do enough damage. If your opponent switches, you've got nothing else. You've got super low HP for a VMAX. And honestly, I do not feel bad putting Butterfree this low. Now, one that saw a lot of promise, but I really don't think has paid it off, is Grimmsnarl VMAX. I don't like Grimmsnarl VMAX, not even really a little bit. Now, it does have nice high HP, which is nice, but again, we've just got a single attack here, so nothing else in reserve. And what we've got is free energy, 170, but if you add another 2 energy, you can go up to 270. So what you're telling me is free energy 170, and I told you that with Butterfree that was not enough, but I can go up to 5 energy 270. And the problem is that although 270 sounds good, and to be fair, 270 will one-hit KO tag teams, it's 5 energy? That's too much. And tag teams, and look, don't get me wrong, tag teams are still seeing play. Mewtwo and Mew is still a legitimate top tier deck. But tag teams are very much waning in their influence. There was a time not too long ago where the vast majority of the top decks were tag teams. That is not the case here. Even if it was still the case, 5 energy? And you're not one-hit KOing VMAXs. And I know that very few VMAXs KO other VMAXs. I understand that entirely. That is not lost on me. But the fact of the matter is, we're talking about 5 energy. It is far too expensive. I'm not putting 5 energy on here. Now, in at number 2, we've got Sizzle VMAX. And honestly, I had completely forgotten about Sizzle VMAX. I forgot Sizzle VMAX was even a thing. Also, shout out to Darkness Ablaze, because I think that is 3 in a row that came from that set. So apparently I'm not a fan of the VMAXs from Darkness Ablaze. Sorry, Darkness Ablaze. I don't like Sizzle VMAX. Now again, I don't look at Sizzle VMAX and, feel disgust. I just look at it and I'm like, eh. Like 2 energy, 90 damage, and you take 30 less from attacks next turn, well, you're KOing weak support Pokemon like Chinchino, and that's about it. But the thing you've always got to remember is that these VMAXs give up free prizes. So you need to have enough benefit from playing them. And all I'm doing here is taking out weak support Pokemon. Sure, I reduced damage done to me by 30, but come on, that's really not that much of a benefit. 30 damage is not that much nowadays. And then we got free energy 190. Well, if I said Stone Journer wasn't good enough with free energy 200, clearly free energy 190 is even worse. And yes, I know that metal energy is easier to get on because you got stuff like Metal Saucer, which will help you to accelerate the energy. But frankly, I just don't think there's any real reason to play this ever. And that means that in at number 1, with apologies to the lovely Joe, it's Celebi. Celebi's the worst VMAX. And Celebi, I do think, is just bad. Like, when I first looked at Celebi, I really didn't think there was much to like about it. It's been a while now, and I still feel just as down on Celebi as I did before. Sure, it's got an ability that says once during your turn you may heal 20 from each of your grass Pokemon, and maybe this should not put it at number 1 as the worst VMAX, and I'm sure I'm going to get the kickback from that, and that's absolutely fine. Do let me know in the comment section what your top 10 list would be, although remember the rule, right? You can't just say Celebi shouldn't be number 1, you have to put your own number 1 in there instead. But the fact of the matter is, healing 20 is the kind of thing I expect from a basic Pokemon that gives up 1 prize, not an evolved Pokemon that gives up 3. We're talking about having Pokemon on your bench that you've got to evolve that can be gusted up and give up 3 prizes, and they're healing a bit here and there. And honestly, 20 damage a lot of the time, and it can be, but it's not often a lot, so you'll end up needing multiple Celebi for this to work. Plus, of course, we've got all the different ways to turn off abilities, like Path to the Peak, for instance, which only target Pokemon with rule boxes. So your ability is easier to turn off, and you're an evolved Pokemon, and you give up 3 prizes. That is not, I'm sorry, but this is not what I want from a Pokemon that's going to be sitting on my bench. And then I mean the attack, 2 energy, 130, search for 2 Pokemon and put them in your hand. No. I'm sorry, 130 damage, you're not even 2-hit KOing VMAXs there. This is not enough damage. And I know I talk about the difference between 120 and 130, and 130 will get most single-price Pokemon, but 120 won't. I understand all of this, and I don't care. Because frankly, ladies and gentlemen, that's when we're talking about a single-price Pokemon, not a free-price Pokemon. I know that Celebi's ability in a vacuum sounds like a good ability, but not on an evolved free prize Pokemon that's going to be sitting on your bench with a terrible attack. I don't like it enough, ladies and gentlemen. And maybe at some point in the future there will be a healing deck which is built around Celebi and I will be made to look dumb. But the fact of the matter is, you can get half of this ability with an Indeedee. Okay, when I say half, what I mean is you heal 20, but it's only from your active, not from all. But a lot of the time you only want to heal your active. You don't always need to heal everything. And Indeedee is a basic Pokemon that gives up 2 prizes. That is a good use of this ability. I don't think Celebi is. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's my list of the top 10 worst VMAXs. As always, I would love to hear from you guys. And I think this is the kind of thing where I would absolutely, genuinely love to see your full top 10 in the comment section. And do remember, of course, this is me week off, so maybe not quite as up to speed with things as I would usually be. I'm making a couple videos in advance. We're going to 1 video a day, so if you want to click a couple of extra ones, that would be nice. And don't worry, anything that dropped while I had my week off will be covered next week, because that's kind of what I do. For now, tell me what you think about my list. Give me your own list in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.